Hello, Americans. I wish I could tell you that everything's going to be all right. I wish I could tell you that our nation has faced bigger challenges that it's facing now and that it will survive this crisis too, stronger for the effort. I wish I could tell you that it's all one big, vulgar reality TV show and then you don't have to be part of it. I wish I could tell you to turn off the TV, ignore the internet, go write that novel, plant that garden, learn that second language, and come back in 4 years' time and we'll fix this mess. I wish I could tell you that the institutions baked into our system of government, from checks and balances to following the wisdom of the people, can never and will never take us down the road to crass authoritarianism, that the American system is immune to dictators. I wish I could tell you all these things, but they are all statements of faith. And as 2016 painfully taught us, faith sometimes lets us down. This week, of course, we celebrate the life of Martin Luther King Jr., and one of King's most popular quotes is, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." It's a notion that progressives have internalized, but the way it is interpreted has done us all a great disservice. It presents the pursuit of justice and equality as an inevitability, a majestic universal principle that we can sit back and behold. But it's not that at all. It is instead a result of human intention. If the arc of the moral universe bends toward justice, you can be damn sure that someone is doing the bending. In the last few years, we've heard a lot about being on the right side of history, of demographic trends in the United States that will deliver a more pluralistic and equitable society. But let us take the lessons of 2016 to heart. Let us shake off the complacency that all we have to do is wait. Write this in your heart tonight: nothing is inevitable. That is the best ground on which to stand as we witness this act of vandalism unfold on our government. If a more just and equitable society is not inevitable, neither is a dictatorship. There is a space between empty optimism and cynical gloom. You can see that space only if you understand that those two self-defeating extremes are ultimately childish stances, one the naivete of the toddler, the other the easy nihilism of the teenager. In the middle is where the adult stands. And tonight, it's time to be adults. To do that, we need to look clearly at what we're facing. If you're like me, you've probably been called a sore loser over the last few weeks. But you and I know that if a conventional Republican had won the election, someone named McCain or Romney or Bush or Rubio, that we would not be here tonight. You and I know that what we face today is more than just partisan anxiety. It is a national emergency, unlike anything we've seen in our lifetimes. We know that the weeks and months ahead are unpredictable and opaque, in a way not seen probably since the Civil War. It is fitting that a new year stands between this election and the inauguration because it gives us the opportunity to turn the page from the tired debates of 2016 to the more relevant ones of 2017. Folks, this is not a dream or a hoax or an elaborate misunderstanding. Nothing is going to stop it. The electors of the Electoral College, the Supreme Court, the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, Bernie Sanders, Iron Man, Justin Trudeau, Captain America, the ghost of James Madison holding the original Constitution over his head. None of these things are going to save us. California is not going to secede from the Union. You're not moving to Canada or New Zealand. There is no timeout, no do-over. We got to face the music. To quote a recent Nobel laureate, "A hard rain's gonna fall." So what now? I'm less equipped tonight to suggest how we must fight than to suggest why. Sure, you owe it to your children and the generations to come. Sure, you owe it to your family, your friends, and neighbors. the person sitting beside you tonight. You owe it to yourself, to your own sense of honor and self-respect and empathy for all those less privileged. But we owe it most of all to all those who have already fought their fight, all those who went before us. We owe it to our ancestors. Martin Luther King also once told us about the mountaintop. In his final speech, he told us that he had been to the mountaintop and he had seen the promised land. Well, as I've gotten older, frankly, I don't know if I believe there is a mountaintop or a promised land, some moment yet to come where every American will be free to live in prosperity and opportunity. But I certainly believe in the mountain. The mountain is the path of the 240 years and counting of American history, a hard and rocky path in a lot of places, and it's a path that only goes up. All of us were born on a certain elevation on that mountain, and too rarely consider what it took to get us there. The map was drawn in the coffee houses of Enlightenment era Europe and filled in by the founders of the American Revolution. The tools we still use to climb that mountain are the ideals encoded in Thomas Paine's Common Sense, in the Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution. And we are where we are from this high perch of prosperity because hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans from the past devoted their lives to climbing this mountain. So in this alpine metaphor, November's election represents our losing our foothold on the mountainside. What you're feeling this moment is the sensation of falling. And our future depends almost entirely on where we'll land and what kind of shape we'll be in when we do. It is tempting to think of our generation as the happy beneficiaries of the grand struggles of the past, from the Great Depression to World War II to the Civil Rights Movement, that our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents sacrificed and struggled and faced unimaginable obstacles to deliver to us the shiny new toy of modern life with its comforts and gadgets. Here you go. But we know better. We know now that the defeat of Hitler, the defeat of Jim Crow, the defeat of communism, none of them were MLK's promised land. We know that we are a part of the continuum of Americans that have to fight and preserve the freedoms we take for granted. We may not see any promised land in our lifetimes. Our only goal is to climb higher on that mountain. And if you're looking for motivation to keep climbing, you can find it in the stories of American history. The stories of the men and the women who pushed the rock a bit higher on the mountain, all ultimately for your benefit. You know, the easiest thing in the world to do is to look back over the span of American history and point to the slave trade, the genocide of Native Americans, the imperialism, the bigotry, the cruelty, the injustice, and say, what a grotesque and hypocritical nation. There isn't a place in the American story for someone like me. But what then would you say to all the Americans from the past who were like you, who devoted their lives to a better world and who used the ideals encoded in the American system to do it, many of whom who saw precious little proof that their lives made any difference at all? They are the people that made this country your home, your birthright, your legacy. Drop this corrosive idea that you are somehow complicit in slavery or imperialism because you happen to be born American. Go out and find those stories in history of people who climbed the steepest part of the mountain behind you. It doesn't have to be Frederick Douglass or Abraham Lincoln or Harriet Tubman. There are thousands of stories not as heralded. I'll tell you some of the heroes I've discovered. The pugnacious suffragette Victoria Woodhull, who ran for president 50 years before women won the right to vote. Ida B. Wells, the daughter of slaves who grew up to be one of America's most passionate anti-lynching activists. Oliver Evans, the unjustly forgotten visionary engineer and inventor of the Revolutionary War period. Maurice Hilleman, the microbiologist who developed 8 vaccines and probably saved more lives than any doctor in the 20th century. Phyllis Wheatley, the West African girl kidnapped by slavers and brought to Boston before the Revolutionary War, named after the slave ship that brought her over, who grew up to be one of America's first great published poets. There are so many stories out there. Find one. Make that person your inspiration, your avatar. Understand that often they didn't have the luxury to be cynical. Take a long look down the mountain behind you. You'll see them all there. You know, I'm not one inclined to believe in ghosts, but if I did, I'd sense them everywhere these days. I'd see them here with us tonight, crowding the aisles. They'd be in the marches and the protests in the halls of Congress and in the state houses. We need now to act as if those ghosts are real, as if all those who climb the mountain behind us are watching. Because it's not only our lives that are at stake, but theirs too. Is there someone from your past, a parent, a teacher, a grandparent who fought through struggle and pain so that you would be just a bit farther along on that mountain path? Think of them and remember them this week as we face this new political reality. That is where your courage will come from. The book of Proverbs says, where there is no vision, the people perish. And the vision we need to protect is that America is not an ethnic group. It's not a racial identity. It is not a tribe. It is an idea, an abstraction. It is a set of common values. We here tonight share a lot of values: compassion, respect, kindness, decency, truth, protection of what is most vulnerable. But the most American of these values is equality. The crazy notion that all human beings, no matter their race, gender, or ability, no matter their body size or shape, no matter whether they're right-handed or left-handed, no matter whether they prefer pancakes or bacon and eggs at breakfast, or any other ridiculous way we like to divide ourselves, all humans are entitled to the dignity to determine their own lives. Before 2016, many of us figured that those values were a given. Isn't it obvious that the truth is better than the lie? That the helping hand is better than the middle finger? Now, after an election in which the primary value was spite, we cannot take those values for granted any longer. How will we defend them? Some of us may run for office. Some of us may move to a swing state. Some of us might donate and volunteer to a greater degree than we ever have before. But for all of us, it's going to be a steep climb. Let's go together. Thank you.